Good evening. How are you? Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D, and I am joined this evening by Matt from Foul Ball Productions. How are you, Matt?
I am very well, Jake. Thank you very much for having me, my friend.
You betcha, man. You betcha. Glad you could make it this evening. We had a great stream on your channel last night talking about this same episode of The Expanse, and by God, we loved it so much, we're going to chat a little bit more.
Here we are. Here we are chatting, buddy.
There you go, man. Let's see who's here so far. We got just another red shirt. Hail, sir. Always good to have you here. Mary G, ma'am, how are you? Good to
Hello,
see you.
madame.
Good to see you. And Wysale, how are you? How are you? I'm gonna pronounce it that way, my friend, because it's kind of how it's spelled. What can you say? All right, so episode 6 of The Expanse. We were graced with it on our streaming services last night, and I have now watched it for a third time.
Oh, nice. Way to go.
Oh, God. I mean, I can't help it with this show, man. I can't help it.
Right on, man.
Oh, man. But let's start off with ratings for the show. So, Matt, what would you... Quick high-level overview, my friend.
For this episode, what would be like my number rating?
Yes.
I give it like 9.5 out of 10. I don't ever give anything 10 out of 10 just because like nothing's perfect, you know. But 9.5 out of 10, man. It's I'm as satisfied with it as I think I could have been. Yeah.
I'm in the same neighborhood, man. I'm right at a 9 out of 10 on this one.
Yeah.
It was so good, and I think the biggest thing for me that I liked about it was that the title of the episode, Tribe, was kind of overall like a theme throughout what we saw, and
they title their episodes really well. Like they always tie it in thematically, and I love that about that. I love that about the show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it kicked off really, really well by giving me what I missed in episode 5, and that was Christian.
Here you go. And Kamina, right?
Yes.
No, we had a little bit of, I think we had a little bit of Kamina in episode 5, now that I think about it.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot more of her from this episode for sure.
Yeah.
And the opening with Avasarala getting rolled right back into the leadership of the UN was just it was a phenomenal performance. Because I mean, she's an amazing actor.
She really is. We were singing her praises last night about how incredible that performance was.
Yeah, I mean the shaking. I mean, it's a combination of fear, sadness, grief, apprehension for what's coming, and the she's reaching down trying to put her jewelry back on after getting asked to be a part of the Secretary of Transportation is now the acting Secretary General, and he wants her in his cabinet, which makes good sense. So
there was something that he was saying about how he got into it essentially because the guy that was in his district doing whatever wasn't very good, and that's why he got into politics.
Yeah,
I think that to me indicates that he's going to be deferring to her a lot, that she's going to be a very powerful influence in this new cabinet.
Oh, unquestionably, man. She's definitely going to be the man behind the curtain, so to speak, in the new government that's getting set up, which is perfect for her.
And as far as like her being in charge and, intersectionality and stuff like that, where they like to switch roles and put women in power and stuff like that. I was thinking about it last night when I was watching the show, how elegantly this show manages to walk those lines without ever becoming obnoxious or preachy. I really find it to be a very elegant exploration of putting women in power roles and stuff like that. I think it's a really elegant way that they do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about it, that the way they do it is they just do it. You know what I mean? They don't treat it like it's something special.
Yeah.
They treat it like an expectation and how things truly just should be, which is, I mean, that's how they should always be presenting it at the end of the day, right? I mean,
I agree.
She's a great leader. I mean, I get why she lost the election in the previous season, but you knew you couldn't keep her down.
But that's what I like about her as a character, is that she isn't perfect. She's no Mary Sue. And so like the same strengths that make her such a good leader when the chips are down and you need someone to stand up were exactly the characteristics that made her a bad, politician to the people. Like, she's too caustic. She's too direct. She doesn't dance around shit. She says what she means and she gets shit done. And that is not, that doesn't sell when it comes to politics.
No, it definitely does not, man.
Yeah. I love that.
Dan, thanks for joining us, my friend. And it's, this is a very true observation, right? Right in the middle of the season, which is where we're at, is where you get the final pieces kind of put into place for where we're going for the conclusion here.
Sure.
4 episodes left at this point.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a hell of a ride to the close, I think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the ride. I'm really looking forward to the conclusion, like how it's all going to pay off. It's amazing how well I think they're moving the plot right now, because I'm so caught up in it. I still feel like we're in the thick of it. Like, there's so much more to go, Oh,
there's got to be, right? And they've got 4 episodes to close it out.
Yeah. That's a lot of story time if you think about it. I mean, that's like Aliens twice.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, man. So one of the things that for me really made this an outstanding episode, Matt, was we got a fair bit of Marco.
Yeah.
And Inaros, man, I love that guy as a villain.
You were pointing that out last night. He is a great villain. And it's really interesting to see. You're saying we got a lot of Marcos. We're also starting to see cracks in the armor.
Yes.
We're starting to see his weak points. We're starting to see, like, the way it was very telling when his, like, the woman who ends up going on Kamina's ship, I don't know her name, the black actress, when she says to Marco, like, would you really have spaced her or whatever? And he goes, what do you think? It was so vulnerable and human. And it was really insightful to the character. It was like, as hard as he is, he's still got like a soft spot for like the mother of his kid, which is really interesting.
It is, isn't it? And it's, Max asks a very apropos question here. Who's going to survive, Drummer or Carol? Because one of the two of them is not making it out of this.
I think Drummer lives. I mean, I love Drummer so much. I can't imagine. I can't even think of anything bad happening to her,
And it's not Game of Thrones, so that doesn't guarantee that she's going to die.
Right. It's true. Oh, it would break my heart if we lost my beloved Kamina.
I'm going with Drummer on this one. I think she's the one who gets out of it alive, and it could still very easily be Drummer who takes Marco out. And if anybody's in the chat who has read the books, you guys obviously know where this is going better than Matt and I do, because we're experiencing it as the show is presenting it to us. Although you've read the first book or two, Matt.
First 3.
The first 3. Okay. Yeah. So it's I'm currently in the middle of another series, and this is what I'm picking up as soon as I finish that one.
It's interesting. It's such a good adaptation that you get differences from the books, but the show is a really great representation of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dan makes I've heard this, that they're really kind of bringing multiple characters into Drummer's story.
Yeah. Like that guy Bull in the book did a lot of what Drummer has done on the show. And in fact, you get a lot of point of view from Bull in the book. And he's kind of like this outside agent that ends up going into Tycho and stuff like that. So it's his storyline's different, and they fold it all into Drummer. I can't speak on how other people feel about it, but I enjoy what they did with Drummer.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make some adaptations from a book into the TV show. There's no avoiding it ultimately.
Yeah.
And from fans of the novels, almost universally, they've said the changes have, if anything, enhanced the story. Not having read them myself, I just got to kind of take their word for it. And that's pretty high praise to me.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most notable things that they didn't do, which I think makes sense for a television adaptation, but initially on Eros, when Eros gets taken over and turned into like all the blue stuff, that actually was much more macabre. Like it was all like human viscera and spinal columns and like disembodied hands like crawling on the ground. It was more like hell than like blue like alien stuff.
Okay, yeah. So that's a pretty big change. I don't know, maybe because it was on Syfy, they figured they couldn't go that hard.
So funny.
Yeah. So, but I mean, a key villain in Inaros is really that, and we see, to the point about seeing some cracks in the armor from Inaros.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, you get a little bit from him when it's pretty clear he wasn't going to space Naomi, right? Even if he probably should have, he wasn't going to do it. And so it's showing a little bit of humanity is still in the guy, right? Despite the fact the guy's a mass murderer. And we got a really cool discussion of how Belters in general see Marco through the drummer's crew.
That was a great point. And also through his own crew too, because of when he stood up, when Marcos, I forgot the other guy's name with the head tattoos, when he stood up to Marcos and they all kind of spun around to look. It kind of reminded me of like the calls in Game of Thrones, like the strongest is the leader no matter what. And they weren't like, hey, don't question the boss. So just like, is this guy more powerful than the boss? It was kind of like all like a moment, like, how is the boss going to react to this challenge? It was pretty interesting. What was the point you were going to make about Drummer's Crew though?
Yeah, well, so the conversation that they had after they get presented with, Marco's offer that it's too good to refuse, right? So he's laying out for him about joining up with him in the Free Navy and becoming a part of what he's doing and his actions against the inners, right? And it really is the inners plural. It's Mars and Earth both. I mean, he's buying all of his weapons off of the surplus from Mars because the place is collapsing. And
I like that, by the way, sorry not to cut you off, but I really like that he's got the most powerful ships, because that makes him so intimidating and such a real threat. It's kind of like when Harry Potter got like the Nimbus 2000 and the Firebolt. Like getting the coolest equipment is like makes it that much more exciting. Yeah,
and so they're all discussing what to do, and there's a wide range of opinion. And I think the point of that was to show us kind of the divided points of view of the belt itself. And
I love how well, they illustrate that so well.
Yeah, it was effective as hell.
It was. And it was interesting. And I loved how they walked us through the only conclusion they could make. Because when we broke it down yesterday, you're like, yeah, what the hell else could they really have done?
Yeah. And what A-Dubs is saying here is that, the guy's saying there was no choice because he figured he's dead if they don't join up. And he's right, but I mean, it was effective by making the crew think they had a choice, knowing for sure they're only going to go to one conclusion, right?
And we were saying too, I mean, what happens if they do decide to be like, and Marcos lets them go and they're like, we're independent, we're good. Then they're just going to most likely get squeezed by either Earth, Mars, the belt, or like just being in the middle with none of them. Like they're very vulnerable in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, if Inaros even lets him go, which I'm not convinced he would have.
Yeah, and that's a huge if.
That's a big ass if.
Yeah.
Even if he did, I mean, they're really fucked because like we were talking, they're going to get caught in the crossfire of what's going on if they're not on a side.
Forgot I was muted. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Wasn't sure if that was me or you there, brother.
No, I just wanted to open so I could interact with the chat, and I didn't want to. If the audio was on, I didn't want an echo.
Yeah, and A-Dubs points out something, and it's a fair observation about the physical differences that we don't see maybe as much as we should have, and that's one of those things that I think it comes from starting on the Siffy network, where they didn't have the kind of budget to pull off CGIing all the belters, because you'd have to do it to all of them.
That would be such a tremendous expense and a production hurdle that would be gigantic. I mean, it's all the stuff that they went through on Lord of the Rings to make like Gimli look like but you'd be doing that for 6 to however many years, 10 episodes a season. I mean, it would almost most likely end up looking foolish and wouldn't really have the effect you would want, because everyone on set would have to be wearing green screens and they'd have to have like this thing up head and you'd have to be looking at their head. I mean, it's possible, but I think it's one of those sacrifices that this is an adaptation and we just kind of have to accept that, yes, we understand belters would be taller. That makes sense. Same with the Martians, but it is what it is, and we just have to live with it. Yeah,
I mean, the challenge of doing that in a show like this over season after season after season, I mean, it's just it's too big of a hurdle. I mean, I can forgive that, right?
Me too. And it's interesting, if you go back and watch the pilot, you could tell they were toying with it, because the prostitute that Havelock goes to see is really tall and skinny. And the guy that Avasarala tortures is really tall and skinny. So you could tell that they were thinking about it. They were testing the waters. And I think they ultimately made a production decision that we just have to, this is one of those things we just have to sacrifice, because it's, we are relatively limited.
Yeah, I mean, you got to forgive him that.
God, you say him,
yeah. Oh, that wasn't bad, man. That was a decent Beltalowda you did there.
Thanks, man. I love that accent. That's one of those. I've said that in a bunch of my videos where that's like I finally understand like people who speak Klingon. Like I want to learn the Belta language.
Dude, we'll get you it. We'll get you the Hooked on Phonics version to learn
the Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone for you.
That's great. That's funny. It's got like different dialects from different star systems.
Yeah, and that's definitely one point of view, Elvis. Marcos maybe would not shoot them, and they fear that the inners would, and that the Free Navy could protect them. Absolutely, that was a prominent point of view in that discussion.
And
no question about it.
And it was the other point that Marcos managed to get all the other tribes on board. That was a big deal. So there really wasn't anywhere else they could run to. And now that Fred Johnson's dead on Tycho, what even is Tycho right now? So Kamina's typical home is gone. And they're kind of in a really tight spot,
Yeah, I mean, I would have made the same choice as her. I mean, I don't see how you could come to a different conclusion. Just like they talked about when the crew met up.
I do 100% think it's reluctant, and she's going to betray Marco at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because that's my girl.
More drummers always a good thing. I'm not going to argue with that.
I always want to pronounce it Waisale. That's what I always thought that, but maybe it's Waisale.
Well, yeah, I do know him from a different medium, and he said to call him A-Dubs. So
okay, A-Dubs it is. A-Dubs it is. But earlier in the chat, he said something that he thought this episode was predictable, and I would love to hear what he means about that, because I didn't feel that way.
I mean, from at a high level, I don't know that I incredibly disagree with that. Because we're at a point in the season where you do need to put pieces in a certain place, right? You've got to move your pieces around the board to get them where you need them to be. for your conclusion.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that you certainly have to go through. I mean, we know that Drummer and her crew are hit together with Marcos. So what's going to happen there? Well, Drummer's not going to kill him because he's got to make it until the end of the season where, he's either captured or killed at that point. So yeah, okay. Drummer's crew is going to at least nominally agree to work with the Free Navy.
And even from a story point of view, they have no chance of surviving an engagement with Marco right now. None. He's got all those Martian ships. They got like these fiercely loyal people. Like even if they somehow manage to kill Marco and get away from them, they're dead as soon as it's over. So it isn't even just preserving the final, like the end. They're from character point of view, they're screwed if they do anything like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't necessarily disagree that was predictable, but I also think it was necessary given the way the stories got to progress.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
Amos and Clarissa. So that it was mentioned a little bit earlier. I think it was Elvis that brought it up, wondering about how they're going to get back to the rest of the crew, right? Because the episode closes with Amos having this sort of moral conundrum about what he had just done.
Yeah.
And needing to get back to Holden. I mean, he even talks about how Holden would never have approved a move like that when they are, they head to the prepper's house. And Amos has to get stripped down to prove to the guy that he's not armed. Mm-hmm. and of course the guy's just going to blast the shit out of him. And
which is pretty sadistic.
It is.
Because he's just going to kill him for whatever he thinks he has. But first, before he kills him, he makes him strip.
Yeah.
That's
And weren't you telling me that apparently they had to stop Chatham from actually stripping fully down in that scene when they were filming it?
Draco said that because he watched the Tie and That Guy podcast, the follow-up podcast.
Yeah.
He said that Wes was willing to go all the way. And they were like, no, it's fine. You don't have to do that. I tell you what, if I had Wes's physique, I'd be down with it too. Right? I check it out. It's all good.
No shame here. What's up?
Dude, he's shredded, huh? He's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a gigantic dude. He is a beast. Dude. I want to know how he works out, man.
Yeah.
Move trucks. He's like Mr. Incredible, just like yanking down 18-wheelers.
I mean, if he's got a little chemical enhancement, I'm not going to begrudge it of him.
Hey, listen, you got to get photographed. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, exactly, A-Dub. I mean, everything was set up and it played out pretty much how you expected for the most part. Although, I mean, I'm not sure that I necessarily had a clue specifically what Amos and Clarissa were going to be doing. I mean, you sort of knew they were going to make their way somewhere. I definitely.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you have to predict it, you're going to be like, okay, the crew of the Rossi's going to come back together and they're going to go and save the fucking day. Yeah, of course. But I mean, I have to watch the journey. Like, I don't expect, halfway through, I don't expect Holden to die. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay. I mean, the story's going to progress, but it's the ride. It's the journey. I mean, we all know Frodo gets the ring inside of Mount Doom, but it's the watching of the journey, the experiencing of the journey that is the whole thing. But I'll tell you what, like, I didn't know how Alex's fight with that Belter ship was going to go. I thought they were going to be like stranded or just like twisting out in the dark for a while. Like I didn't realize, I did not anticipate what had happened, like the way it went down.
Yeah.
I didn't think that.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And Draco, welcome. Glad you could make it, my friend. So we're just going to go into how the Razorback escaped the Free Navy that came after him when they boarded him. And I mean, for me, I didn't even expect them to get intercepted. I figured they were just going to be out on a ballistic trajectory and, some way, somehow, because, you knew the Roci was going to get off of Tycho in this episode. So, I mean, my expectation was the Roci was going to locate him.
That's what I thought too.
They weren't going to be completely ballistic forever, but the problem was how long it takes between the restart of their engine after dropping their core plasma, and anyone with enough engine ability to travel the inner solar system with an Epstein drive would be able to catch up with them eventually.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I guess my expectation was that they were, at least the Free Navy would have probably assumed that they got him with that explosion.
That was my assumption too. I assumed that what happened was they assumed that they got him, and then they were just going to move on. And then there was going to be a rescue mission that they were going to be like, help us, where, ping somebody, and someone was going to catch him. I didn't think that they were going to be able to power back up and that they were going to just wipe out those belters. I didn't see any of that coming.
Yeah, no, I didn't either, man. And that was a really cool scene with how they dealt with getting boarded.
It was so badass. That was so fucking badass. Anytime.
Aren't we all glad Bobbie knows how to pack her gear?
Yes.
I love it. Every time she's in that power armor and that little minigun gets going, man, I love it. It's
good, man. That is a woman who is very familiar with her ordnance.
Yeah. I like that they have respect for that. She really does feel like a special forces military trained person. They're not just, it doesn't seem like a caricature. She seems like someone who, it makes sense. She feels like a Martian Marine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Unquestionably. I mean, so A-Dub though, you figured the Razorback was going to get destroyed. You mean by the missile at the end of episode 5, or do you mean when they got boarded right at the start of episode 6? So yeah, Sean Foss, I don't get why they decided to board instead of just shooting again. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for why you would board rather
than have weapons. Oh! I see what. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of reasons why you'd board rather than shooting again. So they had been drifting in space. So I think there's an assumption that the ship is crippled if you find them, right? You also know this is a racing yacht. It's not a warship. So it's really not particularly dangerous to approach it.
It's probably incredibly valuable too.
Exactly.
Salvaging a thing like that. I mean, Julia Mal was, a trillionaire's daughter or whatever. Julia Mal, so I can't imagine that ship. That's a racing ship. That'd be like a Bugatti or something like that. If you could salvage it, sell it, that would help the Free Navy.
Or you could
arm a ship to take a pirate.
Yeah, you could even arm it. Then you got one of the fastest ships in the belt, and it's armed. I mean, that's great for hit and run, general piracy type activity, whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, I see why they'd go after boarding the ship. They want to capture it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the belters are pirates. I mean, that's what they do. They disable ships and board them and steal their shit. I mean, that's a lot of what those guys do.
Yeah.
If you would want to throw up any red flag with this pirate who's opening the door the first way, I would almost say you would assume that anyone on board would be at least armed with handguns, with small artillery, something that could be carried by individuals on the boat. And the guy who's up front, who has to open the door, if he doesn't have a way to wedge open the door without putting him right in the way of it, that's a little bit off for a pirate, because you would want to be the first one up front while you are jimmying the door while standing in front of the opening you're creating. But other than that, I don't have that much of a problem.
I also don't know if they anticipated Bobbie Draper being in there with her, the minigun.
That is completely that's just the point. You cannot know that you are going to have a fully suited Martian Marine standing on the opposite side of the airlock.
Armor piercing military grade hardware. That's not something you're that's the last thing you're going to expect from a yacht that has no weapons on it. I mean, I don't know what kind of armor they were wearing, but I feel like standard Martian armor has is relatively ballistically armored, like it can deflect small arms fire. So it might not even have been that big of a risk for him to have done that.
I didn't. Are you talking about armor on the Martians?
No,
I mean, armor on the OP.
Like whatever,
armor on the OPA.
Like what? No, whatever suits they were wearing. Yeah, like because the Free Navy's got all that Martian armor. So is that what they were wearing?
It looked like
they were a belter. Yeah, it looked like they were standard. They just had environmental suits for the space suits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that is pretty stupid. But even so, it's a reasonable mistake, I think.
I do too. I mean, there's no reason to expect Martian powered armor. And realistically, I mean, Max kind of nailed it to an extent, though, here. So even belters have red shirts.
And you just met one.
Indeed. So, yeah, I mean, they were just wearing, I thought they were in pretty relatively standard vac suits. I mean, they might have been moderately armored, but it certainly was nothing like the power armor.
No, not at all.
And so you've got some risk boarding the ship, but if you've got just a typical vac suit and a sidearm, which is what you realistically are going to expect when you're boarding a ship like that,
mm-hmm.
Think back to Ashford taking that OPA Free Navy crew when he went on board with at the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
He just went on there with vac suits and their sidearms, and he lost one right away, and then he gets one back, and he uses one of his own. He uses one of his own mate's bodies for the shield capability of a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Elvis's point is very well made as well.
Yeah.
A civilian racing two-seater, they probably didn't expect guns. It's totally reasonable that they didn't. And I wanted to address something else that, what is it? A-Dubs mentioned in the chat a little while ago. He said, not the fastest anymore. They don't have a core.
Yeah.
Well, allow me.
They have a core.
This is a comment that a YouTuber or a person named Pistol Broke left on my video from yesterday. It's an energy core reaction dump to shut down the reactor fast. It's pushing all the coal out the exhaust. It just means they got to restart the reactor, with new coal, reactor pellets, and it takes a while. Until then, they are on float.
Yeah, and it is a fair observation that that's something that suggests military training to even think of doing it. Right. So, I mean, your typical civvies not necessarily going to respond to that. But at the same time, somebody who is out and flying around in the belt and in the outer planets and what have you, they're also going to be somebody who's experienced, most likely, in what's the right word? Not necessarily evasive maneuvers,
tactics.
But perhaps, but dealing with unexpected danger.
And we're also talking about the belters who salvaged the ship. They're not exactly special forces. They're just dudes for the most part. I mean, none of them really have any military training. They're essentially, ragtag militia that are kind of organized under this banner. So them not understanding all the precautions. I mean, if you asked me and Jake, well, maybe not Jake, but if you ask me to go storm a building, you know what I mean? Like, even if I got the gear, I'm sure I'd make lots of tactical errors because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Oh, I'm right there with you, my friend. Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's totally reasonable that a couple of belter grunts wouldn't, anticipate every single hazard because they're not pros.
Yeah. I mean, despite Inaros assembling very good gear and very passionate people, I don't get the impression that they're a professional military.
I don't think any one of them is.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You just got people willing to take up a gun and shoot it.
Yeah. I mean, the most ferocious one was Ashford, and that was just because he'd been a pirate for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's only the only reverse I would submit to you guys is to say that on some level, you would have the people who would be the attrition by use, the idea that okay, so you have 20 pirates. You send them out on a first mission. A couple idiots die right away. Most of the rest of the surviving at least knew enough to get out of the way when people started shooting or something to that effect. And eventually the attrition wears down until you get just a few. But you're right about this idea of these are just people getting onto the cause. That's why I said it the way I said it. The idea that if they're willing to pick up a gun, congratulations, you're an OPA Marine now.
Yep, absolutely.
Doesn't mean a whole lot, but
it's militia. It's what it's militia.
Exactly. And, A-Dub, this is a good question that you've been asking, and it's something that's come up previously when we've been talking about the show this season, is where is this money coming from?
They did hint that Jules Pierre Mao, like they hinted about him when Amos and Clarissa were wandering around the woods. Remember, they had a little conversation about, is he dead? Is he alive?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Maybe he's coming back. Maybe he's got a resurrection to fund it. He's got lots of money, probably lots of little rat holes with like money stored away. Just a thought.
That could easily be a foreshadowing moment. So, I mean, granted, okay, I don't know necessarily 100% what you're going to talk about when you're, wandering in the snow and the cold and you're just trying to survive. A lot of stuff is going to come to mind, but there's very rarely things done in this show that are not intentional. There's not a lot of that happens, which actually bugged the shit out of my girlfriend when she was watching the episode. The body that they got the boots and the jacket from.
Yeah.
It bugged the shit out of her that there was a dead body in the middle of the woods.
That whole sequence with him and the other guy that was like the campfire guy, and Amos kind of looked at him like cross-eyed, like, what's up with this dude? That left a lot of questions that we didn't get answers to. Now, I'm not saying that's a flaw or anything. I'm just saying now that's interesting. The other thing you have to remember, I don't know if this is an excuse, but this, at least the first few books, the stories were built around tabletop RPG style gaming, like D&D style gaming, and they would allow the players to walk through the stories, and that's how they would get like the core of a lot of their stories. So maybe these dead bodies, maybe these little things were just something that the DM introduced. Now, I mean, as I'm saying this, it's not really an excuse for sloppy storytelling, but it could be that this is just something that's on their path. I mean, it's a disaster. People are injured. They're running for their lives, like in all directions. That one guy, the sniper guy, or whatever, that survivalist was just taking people out left and right. But I guess it's a reasonable question either way. Yeah, it's a reasonable question.
I mean, it didn't bother me, but it bugged the hell out of her.
Guys, I want to bring this up because I would say that your girlfriend is someone who would side with EFAT, because this is exactly the kind of thing those guys would. It's a convenience. Without further explanation why that body's there. I mean, you could have wasted time if you had it, saying that Amos policed the body. He found a gut shot. The guy died of the gut shot. He was probably shot by the guy who was defending his territory. But then you have to explain, why didn't the guy police his body out himself then? And it's that whole question of, just like you said, Matt, lazy writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing with this is it doesn't really move the story. Like, if they don't encounter this guy, not much is different. The only difference is Clarissa doesn't have clothes. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't have any impact. So it's just kind of a weird moment, but it's not like this didn't take the story in a whole new direction, or they didn't find like some papers on him that was, oh, this is important. Now we need to know which direction to go. I mean, it might have just been world building for the chaos that's around this area.
I'd rather appreciated why he died if this was world building, because that at least would have pointed to the same thing as the campfire guy. The campfire guy brings up to Amos the threat of, well, can I trust him? I've known too many guys in the past that would hunt me down and shoot me and take my stuff, so I'm going to watch out for him. He's playing the safe part, but
But of course,
I'm losing my train of thought. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I
well,
see
of
what
course,
you're getting at, though.
Amos was worried about that because that was exactly what he was planning to do to Prepper Guy.
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
It would make more sense if it was something like, you know how in Game of Thrones there's like the King's Road, there's like that one road or like one of the major roads that people would encounter things on. It does seem like both of these encounters are literally just in the middle of the woods. So it's kind of like, why are they here? It does kind of make sense. It didn't bug me, and it still doesn't, but I can see why it would stand out to someone.
Yeah, I mean, Campfire Guy didn't bug me because you can see, okay, he's got the campfire set up, so you can tell that there's somebody else out there. There's certainly people moving, and the guy even said specifically he was heading for that UN
Yes.
Relief camp. So
He was simply a guy going his own way, just like the people. If you notice in the first scene with them, as they're avoiding the UN relief point, there's plenty of people just walking out of the woods, escaping everywhere where they're running away from. Well, eventually you got to be in between. If you're in between, you might be well prepared or not. This guy was reasonably well prepared enough to have materials to create a fire. He had drink and food that he carried with him, and he had a point where he was going. This was just where he bedded down for the night.
Yeah, and we're also forgetting that this is the future. This is 200 years in the future. Earth has like 40 billion or 50 billion people on it or whatever the hell it is. This is the conservancy zone. It's essentially like a preserve. You know, but probably everywhere around it is just like infinite town and city and populated. We don't even know how big this area is. It could be just, you know, maybe a few hundred yards that way, the other side of town. You know, so it's the people walking through and coming through is not, that doesn't seem that far fetched to me.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a little bigger than that, right? Because they're walking for some. I mean, to be fair, unspecified amount of time, but judging by their condition, it appears to have at least been hours, if not a day or two.
Sure. Yeah.
Foot speed over broken ground, 2 to 4 miles per hour, maybe a little bit slower because they keep stopping because of Clarissa, and the sphere gets smaller.
You sound like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. we gotta check every out.
This is logic.
So I need a
Well, actually, that is almost a direct quote from him, isn't it? That's the idea, though. You're measuring just how far someone's going to be able to get.
Yeah.
These guys aren't going to be able to get fast if they're in no hurry, whereas your fugitive was on the run, so he's able to do upwards of 5 to 7 and whatnot. It's this is forensics. It's logic. It's using using natural principles to figure out what your best guesses are, and then you can increase the size a little bit, and make a better assumption.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're trying to find somebody, so I mean, fortunately, nobody was after them in this one. So
exactly,
but. Yeah, I mean, Elvis makes a good point though with Clarissa's injury. Could they even go that fast? Probably not. She was clearly dragging, so they were probably doing a speedy couple miles an hour. But I mean, I think for me, dead guy that they got the boot and jacket from, it seemed, I don't know, it didn't cause me any issues, but
me neither. But I can see why it might.
I don't have nearly that much issue with it. I would consider it an adaptation flaw. Like you could have what I said. You could have explained it. Didn't have time. We'll move on from that. Someone else, like your girlfriend, says, "Whoa, wait a second. What's that doing there?" or some equivalent of that.
Yeah, I mean, the dead body really bugged her about how it got there. I mean, big time. It really bothered her. And the reason it bothered her goes back to something that I said 5 minutes ago. They rarely do anything in this show that doesn't have a purpose or meaning and is unintentional.
Yeah, it is. It is on reflection. It is weird that it's there with no explanation.
Yes. And that's what
did you guys get to watch? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to throw in, did you guys get to watch the Tie and That Guy just for shits and giggles? because otherwise I'm not going to bring it up.
Oh, go ahead.
This one was more. This one didn't reveal that many details as in previous ones because we got to talk to the drummer and Keon, and it was far more of an actor's thing, talking about the filming and production of it, and a little bit less of the point. So they didn't actually bring up anything like the guy they found, or at least they didn't bring up any further details. I just wanted to mention that.
They don't do those live, right? That's just a recorded podcast.
It's apparently recorded. They mentioned doing it. They mentioned Wes mentioned in this one that joining us tonight, like they might have done it at night, but that could have been any night.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, they get like they obviously have access to the episodes well before we do.
Oh yeah, yeah. Clearly, I'm sure they could have through all of them.
Yeah, they could have recorded all this before the season even started.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, I don't know. Did random dead guy in the woods bother anybody else? I barely even noticed it. I'm curious what the chat, if that was something.
Can we get a B in the chat for anyone that it bugged?
There you go.
I like that. Old school.
Why not, man? Why not? So now we got another first for the season in this episode, and that was the Roci finally got in space.
Yeah.
Which is
took you long enough.
Episode 6 before the Roci finally leaves.
Wow.
Tycho.
Past the middle point of the season.
And it doesn't feel boring. I don't feel frustrated by that at all.
Like, well, I don't feel frustrated by anything but the fact that we didn't get the girl out and on her pins and running until now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, everything that happened, everything else that happened was keeping me like, okay, what's the next thing? And like this. And each episode that, like in the last episode when it was like, they're all getting ready to go. And then, and Naomi gives them the call because she knows that there's something going on. And it's like, no, stop. It's like, dang it.
You know, to Max's point, and hey, thanks for the sub, by the way, Max, much appreciated. They did, when he took off the jacket and gave it to her, and then they get to the fireplace guy or the fire guy, he says, "Nice jacket," which was interesting to me because I'm like, did he kill that guy? And he's like, "Oh, that's the guy I just killed. You have his jacket." Like, it was very odd the way that guy said that. I wouldn't be surprised if this episode we kind of get like those storyline threads, tied up. This next one.
It would be nice. So now we've got a problem in episode 7 for Amos and Clarissa, and that is, how are they getting off planet to hook back up with the Roci?
I think almost definitely that mob guy.
It's the mob guy that told them don't come back.
Yeah, I'll kill you.
Yeah, but that was before the fucking Earth got assaulted by giant asteroids. You know what I mean? Things have changed.
Yeah, and doesn't that make it? Would you not think he's now a little bit more trigger finger happy?
Maybe, but Amos.
I got people around here who want resources. Yeah, sorry, I keep talking.
No, I mean, we'll see how he handles it, but that's his really only out. I mean, he says he's got to get back to Baltimore. He knows some people there. He said it himself.
Yeah,
I can't even think of what other thing else he could do. Like, what's his other option? Go to try to fight Avasarala? She's on the moon.
No, I think that's pretty much you said it right there. He's basically on his way back. He was going to leave. He decided he was going to visit Clarissa. The rock dropped, and now he's just dealing with things the way Amos normally deals with it, one step at a time. Knock that pin down, onto the next one. Yeah, as simple as it gets.
And kill anybody who's in his way. I mean,
and this is what I love about this show. I love that they're not meandering in this woods stuff. It's some shows I think kind of inelegantly handle some of these hurdles. They'll milk them for too long, or they'll stay on them for too long. It's like we had an episode where they're doing it, and then they get to this cabin and they've got all the things they need to get the hell out of it. It's like, we don't need the whole season to see them walking through the woods. Like, let's get them back to the Roci. Like, that's the story. So
We are also using it for opportunistic exposition because we're getting these story points that are giving us little bits of character for Clarissa and her family. We're getting a couple more bits for Amos. I can see some people might be having an issue with that if they're not happy with the way that they want more of this thing or that thing, more action, more suspense, instead of wandering through the woods talking as they go. But I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I've enjoyed Amos's entire side quest. I find it really interesting.
Yeah,
it just said side quest.
You needed something, right? Because we needed a viewpoint into Earth, and you need it from one of your main characters because you got to be there a lot. So you can't be doing it with a new character who isn't somebody that you're already endeared to. Not if the point is to give you the point of view of what's going on the ground on Earth. So is it a little contrived to sort of do that? I mean, yes, but you do need some type of mechanism to give us the point of view of Earth.
I mean, it's contrived if you want to pick it apart, but from a character point of view, it makes sense. They were in a relative peace, not peace, but they had a time where they could go their separate ways. And the one person in Amos's life who was good to him that's still alive just died.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem that unreasonable that he would want to go seek them out. I mean, Alex goes to Mars to make amends with his family. Naomi left to go try to find Philip. Everyone's just pursuing their own personal, like their family and the people that they've known in life. It doesn't seem weird to me.
Their tribe?
Their tribe. Yeah. No, I buy it. I buy it. And if it stood, like, I guess sometimes it's like, we are watching a TV show. This isn't a documentary. So it's like, I guess maybe like there's a mechanism inside of you that allows certain things to exist while you're enjoying it. But nothing this season has really stood out to me. The only things were the things we pointed out, which were just kind of minor things that were just kind of like, that doesn't quite work, but they're not big. The show doesn't hinge on them. Those are the things that really bug me, is when a story hangs on this point and you're like, that's such bullshit. Like, why would that happen? It's like, and the Force Awakens, it's like they just happened to run into Han Solo. It's like, what the fuck, you? No, they didn't. Like, it's just so ridiculous, but this show never really does stuff like that. So the things that are maybe criticizable, they're pretty minor.
Right there, you're measuring your own personal cognitive dissonance, and it's not enough to blow you out of it, so it's fine.
Any show you're watching, you've got to be willing to accept, a certain amount of a suspension of disbelief. And depending on how engaged you are in the storytelling, tends to move that line as to how much you're willing to suspend that disbelief.
It's a great point. Yes. It's a great point. It's true. It's your immersion. Like, what's your level of immersion?
When you started out, you said you've got to, and I said I don't got to. They catch me in, and then they've got me, and then they can spend the effort to make sure that my immersion is not broken. And that's the sign of the well-told story, the well-assembled dramatic devices of the movie, TV show, whatever. I'm not going to give a whole lot if you, because it's the same thing. Why do you watch a television show? Why do you read a book? Why do you watch a movie? If you weren't led there by someone, or if you didn't trust some promotional material, you wind up there. If you already paid for it, well, you're in for it. If you're turning on a TV show, you could turn the channel. You could go to another channel on the internet. So what's keeping you there? They're spending their effort to engage you and then keep you engaged. And what we are giving them is the idea that all you need to do is keep us engaged, which you stay away from. You stay away from devices of the current era, and you just tell a good story, and you don't, and you spend the effort to not break us out of it. I mean, That's what we're all aiming at here is just keep us involved in the story, tell the story, make us believe in these, make us want these characters to succeed or the bad guys to fail.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, say, another really big and for most of its run a quality TV show, Game of Thrones, right? There's a hell of a lot of suspension of disbelief going on in Game of Thrones. I mean, you're literally believing in magic and dragons and all kinds of shit, and you've got to be willing to accept that. In order to accept it, you need a good story, and that's no different in any genre, whether it's science fiction, whether it's fantasy, whether it's
it could be romance. I mean, if it's two people, you're like, I don't believe these two people are together. It's like whatever the parameters of what the story is, they have to be plausible.
Too.
And that's what the Expanse generally does really, really well. So we got into a bit of a discussion about whether or not Philip is breaking away from Marco some. And I think we got a few interesting points this episode on seeing that development. And we were talking, I think, when we were going through episode 4 together a couple weeks back about, Philip may very well be getting set up to betray Marco.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, what did you see anything in this episode that makes you think that is or is not happening, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole conversation that that Philip has with Naomi, his frustration with her, but then her pleading with him about that one day, like the conscience of what you did will come in on you, and she's just trying to relay that to him, and how he starts off all like combative and aggressive with him, and then by the end he goes back and sits in the cell with her. I think that's how that story ends, if I'm not mistaken, or there's some kind of communication there, the back and forth, and it seems like he's softening, right? It seems like he is getting exposed to a new point of view that isn't just Marcos's worldview, and is becoming a little more. He's growing, it's like a lot. I can count for myself, like I had like whatever political point of view I had in high school, and then you grow and you get a little more worldview, and you change and you grow and you get new information and new points of view, and you can change how you think. And I think that's what Philip's going through right now. And my prediction is that he will be a linchpin of how Marcos goes down. That's my prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be poetic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. It would be. I think I said that like early on. Like the typical arc for this character would be to be a zealot and then betray. The only thing about that is we've already kind of seen that a few times. Like we saw that with Clarissa, where she turns from villainous to zealot, or to villainous to like savior or hero. So I don't know. I feel like they're gonna just play it out with Philip, but I'd be interested if they threw us a curveball and he doesn't do that, or something unforeseen happens. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, and and we've even got a split opinion on this in the chat, which I love, because we're all seeing this right from our own point of view and coming to our own expectations and conclusions and what have you. And we saw a bit of this when we were talking about the whole relationship with Amos and Clarissa as well. About half the people in the chat are like, no, they're totally brother and sister, dude. And about half the people in the chat are like, yeah, he's hitting that.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. Yeah, because Elvis is convinced. He's like, he's not breaking away. So
yeah.
I look, honestly, I would like to see that he doesn't. Just because I think it would be interesting. It would be like not predictable. It would be contrary to what it would subvert my expectations.
But in a good way.
And I just think it'd be interesting. I don't know what they're going to do. I imagine Philip, like I said, I imagine what I think Philip's going to do. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm open to any of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, either way could work as long as it's told right. Because right now, I think we've all got our guesses as how it's going to go, but narratively, either option could work.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to assume A-Dub's point of view, because I got to be honest, man, you're coming across a little cynical. A little cynical. So I don't know if I want to lean into that one. But yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, there's been a lot of reason to be cynical about Hollywood. I mean, in fairness.
It's true. But I think this show's given us a lot of reason to trust them and have hope that at least one show is going to, maintain, it's going to stay the course, like they were never like super woke, but they've dealt with, they represent the things that Hollywood says that they want more of. So it's not that I expect them to maintain their integrity all the way through, because they're showing me through 6 episodes. Is it 5 or 6? 5, 6. What was the last episode we just watched?
6.
So through 6 episodes, it's been really remarkable entertainment, like markedly improved from last season. And
oh yeah,
we're saying maybe even the best that they've done. So I think they're gonna stick true to the brand. I think they're gonna follow through strong. That's my prediction.
Yeah, it's the one thing I'm confident of is that this season at least is going to close out solid. I have no doubt that we're going to get, at least I'm going to be very satisfied with how we close out this season in the final 4 episodes.
Yeah, I think so.
I do have a little bit more worry as we go into next season, season 6. Unfortunately, as of right now, is scheduled to be the final season.
Mm-hmm.
And because, again, hearing from people who've read the books, they said that 6th book starts getting a lot weaker in terms of the source material, which is concerning.
Yep. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's just have to wait and see. I think I don't want to say anything too dramatic. I'm very happy with the way the season's going, and I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough.
I risked jinxing things. So we'll just keep it at that. Stay superstitious. 3
yeah. And will the belt united and recognized by Earth and Mars? I do think that is how we're going to close out. I don't know if we're going to get that at the end of season 5. I certainly see it by season 6.
I wonder. I was thinking. I don't even know if Marco's going to die this season. I mean, we have him was setting him up last season. This season, he's being really strong. I don't know. Maybe it'll be like a Darth Vader at the end of A New Hope thing where he kind of gets blasted off by himself and he's going to take the time to rebuild. I don't know, because he is a very juicy villain, and it would be. It would be a lot to get rid of him and then have to build up a brand new threat next season.
Yeah, and I mean, I know the people who've read the books obviously know whether we've got a new threat next season or not. I mean, you could stretch out the Inaros thing, but I don't know. It feels like a singular novel or season type villain to me.
100%, 100%. And I really, it's refreshing with this show to see such a straight line. To see like this is the villain, we need to defeat him. You know what I mean? Like this is how like A to B, which is this show doesn't do that. I mean, this show is so expansive. But it is like it goes in so many different directions and deals with so many different threats that it's never been just a straight line like that. So it is really nice to see it in this one.
Yeah. And Dan, I cannot let this comment go without acknowledging it because you're so on the money, my man. The cast and the show is so diverse, but it's not shoved in your face in the terms of wokeness. And exactly, it's one of the things that I absolutely adore about this show and the storytelling that they're doing. This is how diverse is done properly. You got people from all walks of life. You got people of all points of view, people of all skin tones, different backgrounds, whether you're talking about the Maos who, multi-trillionaires or wherever the hell they are 200-300 years from now. all the way down to somebody like Amos, who came out of, an abusive streets background, all hues, shapes, sizes, equipment, loves, whatever have you. Everything about this show is what diversity should be.
100%. 100%. And it frustrates me that it isn't praised as such by, the fucking media who that's all they can ever talk about in entertainment. I'd say that's the biggest thing. And it's weird how this one just slips by. But like I said, I've always said that in my reviews. Actually, that's probably a good thing because it keeps it safe from their infiltration.
Yeah. And it bothers me because I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, right? Which is a show that's gone down the absolute shit can in the name of diversity, intersectionality, and wokeness.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even resemble its old self. And they're constantly crowing about diversity. Yep. It's like, if you want to do diversity, go watch the fucking Expanse because those guys know how to do it.
Yeah. That should be your roadmap. But I think that speaks to the higher thing. It's really not about diversity. It's about agenda. And that's why they do it. Because it's like that gives them a platform for them to, espouse their beliefs, which no one wants, obviously. And that's probably why this isn't the show that they're going to use because it's so complex. The Belters, while they are the underprivileged in this universe, they also do a lot of shitty things too. I mean, like I said, you can't just go throwing rocks at Earth and being like, well, they're sympathetic.
Yeah. I mean, we totally sympathize with the motivation, but not with the mass murder.
Right.
Because that's no.
Yeah. It's probably the same reason they didn't like The Wire, because it's not a straight line. It doesn't just tell the audience how to think and feel. Mm-hmm. It kind of allows you to make up your own mind, which is, well, that's not propaganda. We don't want that.
Yeah. And I love that we've got a varying array of opinions in the chat about whether Marco survives this season or not too. It's totally divided. Marco is an amazing villain and I would love to see him drag out. I just don't think that that's the way that they're going. Mm-hmm. I agree that like the level of villain that he is as an antagonist is somebody you could play out for longer than a season.
Sure. I like Dan's point of view too here. I like that. Assuming it has to do with destroyed the builders. Something that reminds me of something that Holden said to Fred Johnson in like episode 1 or 2, where he goes, when he would go through the ring gates, there was like some entity or something like that in the gates that like they were pissing off or something like that. I think he's right.
To know about that.
Yeah. So I'd be surprised if that never came up,
Yes. And it needs to, right? Because that's a hell of a, I hate to say it, but it's a hell of a mystery, right?
Dude, I need to know. That's my only criticism with the direction they've taken the story in is just that, wait, we have aliens and like hundreds of exoplanets. Like, what about all that stuff?
I know. We can't ignore it, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. Is Naomi Japanese?
No. I think what A-Dubs is calling out in the books is that Kamal was Japanese and African was Naomi.
Oh. Yeah. No, he's always Indian. He's Indian in the books.
Is he? I haven't opened them yet, so I can't speak to it.
I'm 99% sure he's Indian in the books because they talk about the I always forget where on Mars they settled, but it was like some crater, some valley, the Mariner Valley. Bam, nailed it.
I got what he said. Japanese, African, Nagata. Yeah,
that's probably true. You're probably right about that. Yeah, I didn't. No, but I see what you're saying. But no, the Mariner Valley was settled by Chinese, Indian, and people from Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's why they're cowboys, but they're like from the Far East too. So I was like, I love that.
Yeah. And just as an FYI, if you're not aware, we get your comments on about a 10 to 15 second delay after we've said something. So a lot of it's not because we ignored it. It's just really because it didn't come in yet.
Yeah. Plus it's tough to like talk and like deal with the chat and try to balance all these things, juggle all these things in the air.
Skill I have not perfected yet. And I am not ashamed of that.
No, it is what it is. I do my best, So.
Yeah. So I don't know, final thoughts on the episode, man. I feel like we're about ready to wrap up for the night, but Give me your final thoughts on the episode, and what do you think we're going to see next week, Matt?
I'm very pleased with this episode. I thought it was excellently done. I thought it maintained a nice tenor between tension and drama and also character exploration, but they did it in really efficient ways, like, you know, them going through the woods and being able to explore Clarissa's backstory and her motivations, who she is, watching Amos develop as a character. I have very little complaints about this. I don't even think I have a major complaint about this episode at all. I think if episode 7's next, I'd be surprised if we don't have the crew together by at least the next episode, because it's got to start moving, right? We only have 4 episodes to go. So either by this episode or next episode, I think we got the crew on the Roci. I think they're going after Marco. It might be all-out war. You know, we've got Avasarala moving into power, you know, back into power. It might be all-out war. And we might have like a war of the scale we haven't seen yet in the Expanse. So I don't know. I'm excited, man. I am just loving this ride. I feel so lucky that this is the season we got with the crazy times we have right now. I think this is an excellent show, and we're very lucky that they stayed the course and they made such a good show for us. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too, man. So Draco, it seemed like you were going in and out. Are you with us to give your final thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. Well, at least if you can hear me, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
I was just going in and out because I was changing over. Yeah, at least as far as this episode is 8 solid 8.5. I probably took a little bit off of it in the rewatch because of of a few elements that we were already discussing. But it's still a solid episode because it's really hard for me to give anything a 10. Where are we going? Well, we're going to finally get some action. We are finally going to get some action with the Roci because you guys weren't talking about Marco playing with lights there at the end where you see the course of the Roci toward the Zemea and the ship that he's going to send after it. Although it's only a Belter ship. Kind of surprised he didn't send a Martian cruiser after them. But we're going to see some action coming up. And I do think we will finally get, depending upon the things that are happening, we are finally going to be getting some of the rest of the crew together, whether that's next episode or immediately the episode after that.
Yeah. Extra points for the blood spatter on Amos. Yeah. That was good.
I also wanted to say what's up to Piston Broke because he commented on the video from yesterday, and we actually read your comment on this show. It was part of the conversation. So welcome, sir. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, is Marco really the big bad, or is there a bigger string puller? And that's a good question about predictions as we're going into the final quarter of the season here to wrap it up. I mean, final thoughts on the episode today. I enjoyed the hell out of it. The best episode of the season for me has still been episode 4. Absolutely my favorite so far that we've seen this go around. But this is right up there. I don't think we get the entire crew back together in episode 7. I think that's probably an episode 9 moment. But they're all going to be heading back together next week. And maybe a couple of them will hook up, but it's the entire Roci crew is not going to be one next week. And I don't think they get Naomi back probably until the final episode of the season, honestly. Because I mean,
Naomi. Yes, I'm sorry. When I said that, I meant Sans Naomi.
Yeah. So, yeah. Because I mean, she's in prison on Marco's ship, for Christ's sake. I mean, obviously it's going to be a little harder to get her back. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the pieces we've got left to go is you kind of need to get the crew back together, and some sort of plan for how to deal with Marco has got to come together. And that's what we've got sort of left to experience this season.
Oh, sure.
Naomi's working some inroads with the certain members of the crew of the Pella.
Yes, she is.
And her biggest foe is gone.
This is true, man. And
That's a
yes,
good point.
God, oh man, A-Dubs, I would love to see Miller again, but I don't think it's in the cards, man.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see, dude. We will
We
see.
need more proto-molecule. We need Holden in proximity to proto-molecule to get Miller back.
I think
Corners kid.
Tom Jane's still involved. He directed episode 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are right, sir.
Yes, he did direct episode 3, and it was a good one. Of that initial 3-episode dump, it was the best one.
And they were also good. Oh my God.
Oh God, yes.
It was like ramped up. It was like ramped up storytelling, ramped up tension.
Yeah.
It was perfect for making a 3-episode drop just to go this and then this and then this.
So good. So good. Oh God, I love this show.
And yeah, no bet, Elvis, because that's exactly what I'm thinking is going to go down. No bet from me, my man.
And perhaps a young man whose allegiances are slightly in sway now.
Yeah, I think that's going to be along with it. But all right, man, before we go, anything anybody want to plug, Matt?
Yeah, check me out. Foulball Productions is my channel. Right now talking mostly the Expanse. I talk a little other stuff. I put out my podcast last week, the MF for episode 3. I talked about my thoughts on cyberpunk and the documentary No Safe Spaces, a state of comedy, independent content, stuff like that. So I'm always putting out stuff like that. If that's what you're interested in, give me a sub.
There you go, man. There you go. Draco, final thoughts? Anything you want to plug?
I can't sub to you guys anymore. I already am. Check out both of these guys. Sub to them if you haven't. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't talk down a sub to my channel, but the Jake D and Foulball Productions are always including me, and they're excellent guys. Especially when I start to talk over them, they're far too egalitarian. But yes. Sub everybody, like, share videos around. We're sharing some of the best stuff that we're getting from anybody making entertainment right now. This is the best reason to gather around, talk about it, argue about it, bring up this issue, bring up that issue, talk about what you liked and what you hated. This is perfect. We love it. Let's do more.
Yeah. And thank you so much for hanging out with us. You could be anywhere else in the world, but you're hanging out with us. So thank you very much.
There you go, man. And thank you to everybody in the chat, because you guys are really one of the things that make these streams so damn fun.
It's so fun.
Without you guys, it'd just be 3 assholes spouting off at each other, you know.
Pretty much.
Get the interaction.
Who wants to watch that?
Somebody, I'm sure. But again, thank you for coming in. I will be going live tomorrow night to review the horribly crashing and burning CBS All Access version of The Stand.
Get it.
I'm watching it so y'all don't have to, man.
I'm interested in what's keeping you on it, because it just gets more meh and more meh and more meh.
Because by God, I said I would do it. That's what keeps me on it.
Man of his word.
And of course, Howling About Entertainment on Sunday evenings at 5:15 Central Time right here on this channel. These two gentlemen are frequent guests on that show, where we just sort of talk about what's happened in entertainment over the course of every week.
Here.
Thanks, Rotten.
All right.
I got no place else to go.
All right, everybody have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next video.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Take care.